All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro, having some more interesting conversations. Can I just say this? If somebody asked me, this is the great thing about doing radio. If somebody asked me, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, or even 2 years ago, if I'd be in the same room with one of my favorite college basketball coaches of all time, and Michael Avenatti, I would have said you're on cocaine.
You'd have said, who the hell is Michael Avenatti?
Well, 5 years ago,
definitely said that.
You're probably
Absolutely.
right about that. Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't know who you were before this whole thing went out with Stormy Daniels, but it's crazy. I didn't think I'd ever get these two guys in the same room.
I want to mention something from the last segment, but the flip side, to getting all this publicity is that if you didn't have this publicity, nobody with this Nike case, they wouldn't have been taken seriously. A different attorney would not have been taken seriously. True or false?
True. Look, in the history, I'm just going to say this. In the history of the United States, there has never been a federal prosecution, successful federal prosecution, or even a trial, to the best of my knowledge, of any attorney who engaged in any similar conduct. So and that tells you everything you need to know about what's going on here. But look, I got to be very careful on what I'm going to say, and I'm looking forward to this trial in New York in January very much.
And we hope it turns out the way we hope it turns out for you. So we have a very special guest on the line with us right now. Used to do a show here at KDWN. He is a Republican, and he said he's willing to get in the ring with Michael Avenatti. And I said, let's do it. We've done it before. Let's do it again. We just had Danny Tarkanian. Now Pat Casale. I almost call you Pat Cadell, the late Pat Cadell, for some reason. I don't know why, Pat. But, Pat, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Very good, and I don't want to be the late one, so I'm glad I'm here.
No, we want you to be here, Pat. We love you. So, Pat, here's what I want to start with. A lot of people on the right seem to still think that the transcript between the President of the United States and the President of Ukraine is a farce, and it is a nothing burger, and I know that you are one of those people that believes that. Explain to us why you feel that way, and then I'm going to let Michael and you take it over from there. Why do you feel that way?
Because based on everything I read, there's nothing there that would constitute what I would consider a quid pro quo of magnitude. It's nothing that we haven't done for years. So to me, it's not that big a deal. I mean, it just seems that they're trying to do everything they can to try to defeat the president, and yet nothing gets done in Washington. I mean, they can't get anything done because all they keep doing is going after him over crap. Why not just put together a strong push for the 2020 elections and defeat him without having to consistently make everything look bad? I think they're hurting themselves. They're hurting the country. I mean, I really don't see this as a big deal. I really don't.
What do you say to that, Michael?
Well, I mean, a couple things. First of all, and I've made this point in the past, it's not a transcript. It's a summary of the call. It is not a verbatim transcript. And actually, in light of the testimony of the last week, what we've learned is that others that listened to the call had requested that words be put in the summary, and that request was denied by the White House counsel because those words were not helpful to the president, and they were concerned about what those words might mean for the president. But look, I don't care whether there's been a quid pro quo. I keep making this point. There doesn't have to be a quid pro quo for there to be an impeachable offense. The president of the United States cannot reach out to a foreign power and request assistance politically for his own individual purposes, namely for re-election in 2020. The mere asking is an impeachable offense. And the reason is because the fact that you have the president of the United States, the president of the most powerful country on earth, asking for a favor of a foreign leader is a problem. Because anytime you ask anybody for a favor, whether it's your spouse or one of your kids or somebody else, there's always something that goes along with it. Maybe not at that particular point in time, but all of a sudden the other party believes at least they have a little bit of leverage on you. And there is the problem. There is the quid pro quo. You don't have to have a quid pro quo, though.
In response to you, I got to say here, if I thought the same way you're thinking right now, if it was clear that he was looking for information against Biden for 2020, I would definitely say I would have to lean towards your side. However, I don't think that was the case. For the last 2 years, they were talking about what the Bidens did prior to him even announcing he was going to run for president. And to be frank, he was basically looking to find out what happened in 2016. He wanted to see what was going on, and he wanted to discuss what Biden happened to go on press on television talking about. Hey, I told the guy, if you don't fire this guy, you're not going to get $1 billion. And they fired him. So,
yeah, but the history of that.
If he doesn't do that, I would sit there and say, okay, maybe you got something on Trump trying to go after Biden for the election. But Biden right now is not even going to be the candidate the way things are looking. So the bottom line is I don't think he was looking for information to beat him in an election. I think he was looking at what happened in 2016. I want to know who was involved with tampering with our elections. I want to know what proof you have, and he figured this new president would work with him. That's what I read or the way I interpreted what was said. So basically what you have here is interpretation, and it goes either way. But if it was specifically for the 2020 elections, then President Trump would be wrong.
Well, I don't think there's any question that it related to the 2020 election. I mean, this whole idea that of all the corruption in the world, I made this point the last segment, all the corruption in the world in the United States, all of a sudden Donald Trump wants to focus on this alleged corruption in Ukraine, and it had nothing to do with his election in 2020 and his efforts to discredit Joe Biden. I'm not buying it. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's not. This isn't just some coincidence. And I also disagree with you relating to the fact that it doesn't look like Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. I mean, look, I think that my party has a 50-50 shot of screwing this up because they have a long history of screwing up elections, especially at the national level. And I'll never doubt their ability to do it. And I think it will be a major screw-up if they don't nominate Joe Biden. But everything at this point appears to suggest that they are going to nominate Joe Biden. He continues to lead in many of the polls nationally. There's a lot of Democrats that recognize the issue that I've raised, which is he has the best shot of beating Donald Trump, including or most importantly, in the 5 or 6 states that are ultimately going to matter. And therefore, I think he will be the nominee. And I do think that he will defeat Donald Trump in November of 2020, especially in those key states.
If the people in our country continue leaning so far left, and I have to sit there and say with confidence, I pray to God it is Biden, not because I think Trump is a lock to win, but at least it will have 2 individuals running for the White House that are definitely not going to sell our country out and bankrupt us. But, I mean, right now, the way people are leaning to the left and, Medicare for all sounds like the solution, and those numbers that were projected by Elizabeth Warren are totally inaccurate. First of all, it's more like 5 million jobs, and 5.2 trillion to be more like 10 trillion. And the fact that 56% of the population actually, or in the United States, pay federal income tax, there's no way that they can facilitate her plan.
And as a precursor, Michael, Pat is a very successful insurance salesperson in Las Vegas. That's why he has such information.
So Pat, let me ask you. You're a business person here in Vegas. I mean, you're clearly a smart guy. Let me ask you this question: of all the Democrats running or likely to run against Trump in November 2020, who do you think has the best shot of beating him? And I know you believe he's going to be reelected, but who among them would have the best shot in your view?
At the present time, the batting orders that they put on stage right now that are going to be on stage, none of the above I would look at. I mean, Gabbard, I think I would be strong because of her.
No, I'm sorry, I said Democrat. I said Democrats.
Well, all right, but the guy I thought, who I would support, honestly, I thought John Delaney was very, very strong. I was hoping Schultz, even though he was going to run as an independent, would run, because then we're talking about people that are running that understand what it takes to be an American president. The fact that you have everybody up there on the stage talking about selling out the farm, giving things away, is going to kill what they're trying to do.
Pat,
maybe Buttigieg.
All right, so Pat,
Mayor
of the people in the race right now, who do you think? Not in your heart or not what you would hope, but I mean, you deal with people all the time in your business. And so who do you think would have the best shot of beating Donald Trump of the people in the race?
You're going to laugh, but I'm going to say Mayor Pete.
No, I'm not going to laugh because, I've spent some time with Mayor Pete way back when I was traveling the country last year thinking about running myself. And I have a lot of respect for Mayor Pete. He's, I'll tell you this, he's the smartest guy in the race by far. There's no question about that.
We agree 100% on that.
Yeah, he's the smartest guy in the race. I have a lot of respect for him. Very articulate. I think he'd make a great president of the United States. I have serious questions as to whether he can actually match up well against Donald Trump, especially in those key 5 or 6 states. In fact, I have serious doubts as to whether he could pull it off. I think if you look at where we are right now, if you look at Donald Trump's rhetoric and the way that he campaigns, you look at some of the polling data from those key 5 or 6 states, I think there's really only one choice, and that's Joe Biden. And I think the Democrats need to nominate Joe Biden. Is he perfect? No, he's not close to perfect. But I don't think the Democrats should allow perfect to be the enemy of the good.
Pat,
Michael, I got to tell you, I think that your side right now is blinded by listening to the Pocahontases of the world. I'm sorry I said that, but that's how I feel. And Bernie. I mean, they're talking stupid, and the American people or the youngsters think, oh, this is great. Socialism works. I just don't see it happen.
Pat, I have to tell you, if the Democrats, and this is not a knock, I agree with Senator Nelson out of Florida in his comments in the last 48 hours. If the Democrats nominate Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and this is not an indictment of their policies or whether I like them or whether I think they'd make a great president. I'm just talking about who can win. If the Democrats nominate Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, I think Trump's going to be reelected.
Pat,
and again, I got to tell you something. That's exactly what I would say. And at this moment, the only problem your guys having is raising money. I mean, honestly, I don't understand how anybody in the United States of America can possibly support Elizabeth Warren's point of view or Bernie's. There's just no chance you're going to lose jobs. And at least Bernie's honest enough to say we're going to have to tax everybody.
Can I jump in here as an independent? Okay, and then I know JD wants to jump in. Let me just jump in and say this. As an independent, okay, you're right. I don't agree with many of the policies of Bernie Sanders. I would never call her Pocahontas because I think that's racist, and I think you're getting that from the Donald Trump playbook. And it's
what you did. Bro.
Well, I mean,
the fact that she came out and had a blood.
I mean, Brian, she put that upon herself. She's 0.0001% Native American.
Okay, well, the bottom line is
it's a joke.
Okay, but that is that's out of the Donald Trump playbook, who seems to go after anyone and everyone with 10-year-old insults, and I'm not about to do that. But let me finish my statement. But let me just finish my statement real quick, okay? I respect Bernie Sanders. Do you know why I respect Bernie Sanders? Because nobody gave him a $500 million company, okay? Nobody gave him what Donald Trump was given to him by his father, okay? Everything was given to Donald Trump. Doesn't mean Donald Trump hasn't done well with himself, okay? But I respect Bernie Sanders. He's been a civil rights activist his whole life. He is a good man. And I'm going to tell you something. I'd rather vote for somebody and disagree with their policies than vote for somebody like Donald Trump, who is the insulter-in-chief, who acts like a 10-year-old, who stands up there on a stage with some of the leaders of the world like Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin and embarrasses the world, okay? Embarrasses this country, and he's an embarrassment to the world.
If you look at what's accomplished, Brian, though, if you didn't know it was Trump.
Unemployment numbers are down. The economy's great. It doesn't
way
doesn't
down.
excuse his ridiculous
Jobs
behavior.
are up. Stock market's as high as it's ever been.
It's on an all-time high, and their unemployment numbers are at an all-time low.
Let me ask you a question, Pat. You have kids. Pat,
how's that happening?
Pat, you have kids, okay? Would you say do what Donald Trump does? Behave like Donald Trump does. Does he set a great example for the country? Is he the kind of leader that you want your kids to grow up to be?
Well, can I ask you a question?
I just asked you a question.
When you look at the politicians of America today, you show me the perfect. They all
didn't say. I never used the
Okay.
word perfect, but I'm going to tell you something about Barack Obama.
Brian does want Larry Poppins to be president.
No,
of the United
I never
States.
said that.
Perfect Larry Poppins.
That's incorrect. That's a lie.
He can have no flaws.
No, that's incorrect. Let me tell you
That's
something about
Brian's
Barack Obama.
president.
Let me tell you something about Barack Obama, okay? I didn't vote for Barack Obama. I don't agree with him with the way he handled certain situations and policies. But one thing I always say about Barack Obama, he is a good husband, he is a good father, he is well-spoken, and he is a decent, good man. Did you hear?
Outside, wait, how do you know he's a good husband and a good father?
Oh, do you think Barack Obama's cheated on Michelle? What evidence do you have to support that?
I asked you a question. I'm asking you what defines good? What makes him a good husband and good father?
Good question. I'll give you an answer, okay? First of all, for as far as what we know, Barack Obama is a faithful man who has one wife, doesn't have several different ex-wives. Last I checked, he didn't
Easy
make
now.
Michael, do you have any information that Barack Obama made a payment of $120,000? Because last I checked, Michael, you were on a case.
No, but you know what though? After I saw the president feel up the Nats player, I think his claims were at least $131,000.
I think Suzuki actually enjoyed that. Michael.
Look, Suzuki,
like
if you
that.
call, please call me on my 1-800 number because I think we can get you 131 large.
Hey, Pat, serious question here. We know, as an insurance specialist, we know how poor the Affordable Act was for small businesses and budding entrepreneurs. How much worse would it be if Elizabeth Warren became president of the United States and instituted her health care plan?
You probably would see a lot more people unemployed because her her tax bill against business owners, payroll tax, will destroy a small business owner. My
Exactly.
business is up 70% since the president got elected and selling health care to small groups.
Going back to
Now,
what I was,
I
Go
can
ahead.
tell you based on that number alone, and I'm writing more group now than I have in 5 years. In the 8 years under Obama's administration, the rates went up 400%. The plans didn't work as well as they had promised. And I can tell you, if they could fix the health care problem, if these people in Washington on both sides would sit down and try to fix the health care problem and lower rates 30 or 40%, which, by the way, the average family is now at $20,000. If you can knock off 30%, you'd save $6,000 per family. You want to stimulate the economy? That's the greatest way to do it. That's $500 a month in somebody's pocket to use for a new car or towards their mortgage.
So
unfortunately, these politicians don't listen.
Go ahead, Mike.
So 2 points. I mean, first of all, Barack Obama is 10 times the man that Donald Trump has ever been at any point in time in his life, period. Okay, you may disagree with his policies, but Barack Obama is a solid citizen. He served for 8 years as president of the United States. He did not embarrass the United States. There were no scandals, no convictions, no charges, nothing. I mean, he served this country well. He deserves our respect, in my view. I think he's a solid man, a good man,
I agree,
and a good husband. That's number one. Number two, I will support the Democratic nominee to the best of my abilities in any way I can against Donald Trump in 2020 because I think that he is a threat to the future of the Republic, and I think that if he's reelected for 4 more years, I don't know that we'll ever recover, especially the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will go 7-2. It's going to change life in America for the better part of 50 or 75 years. Number 3, I'm a pragmatic guy. This is what I look at. Who has the best shot of beating Donald Trump? That's frankly all I care about at this point. And when I look at the field, the answer is crystal clear, and that is Joe Biden. And that's coming from a guy that's taken over 25 trips to the key 6 states in this country as to what it's going to take to win. When I started thinking about running last year, the very first trip I took was to Youngstown, Ohio, and there was a reason for that because that was ground zero for what happened in the 2016 election and how Donald Trump was able to tap into the belief by many working-class people that they'd been left behind, and that's what really propelled him in a big way to win the presidency. And I said at that time, look, I've got to figure out if I could win in Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Florida. Because if I couldn't win in those states, then I don't have any business running. And the bottom line is I don't believe that Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders could beat Donald Trump in those states.
I agree with that, but I also agree with Pat, with Pete Buttigieg. I think he would have a very solid chance. I think Kamala Harris would have a chance. I know that you're a Joe Biden supporter.
Look.
Here,
look. I'm gonna ask the question. Okay, relating to Mayor Pete. Let's just have an honest discussion about it. Would those key states vote for a gay man to be president of the United States? Look, in my America,
Probably
yes.
not.
No, in my America,
In your
yes.
America, yeah.
I want to believe I live in a country where the answer is, of course they would. Absolutely. Any suggestion otherwise is absurd. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do we live in that America? I don't know if we lived in that America, and that's a concern of mine. Okay, so before people go off and make a bunch of accusations about what I just said, I want to be really clear. I'm not talking about what I want. I'm not talking about whether this is could happen if it was Michael Avenatti's America. It's not Michael Avenatti's America.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of ignorant bigots in this country that will not vote for somebody, not because they don't like their policy or for whatever reason, but because someone is a homosexual, and that is sad.
But there's a second component to this that a lot of people don't understand, okay? I think that Mayor Pete would have a better shot of being elected in many of these key states if he was running against a candidate other than Donald Trump. The problem with Donald Trump is, okay, he has no boundaries. He will say and do whatever it takes to win. And look, a lot of people like that about him. But this is a guy that will feed on the fact that Mayor Pete is gay. He would feed on the fact that a woman was running against him. He would feed on the fact if a nominee was a minority running against him. He will exploit that issue to the fullest degree and use it to fuel his base. So I ask myself this quite a bit because I'm a big fan of Mayor Pete, a big fan. He's the smartest guy in the race, and I've spent some time with him. I'm very impressed by the guy, and I think someday he's going to make an exceptional president of the United States.
See, I kind of push back on that. I don't think that. Do you actually think that he would attack him for being a homosexual? Donald Trump would
directly,
and so
that was my question.
Or if he did it, he would have to become overly overly religious, right?
Look, would he do it directly? No, not
to fire
necessarily.
up that side of his base, but his history is so the opposite of being overly religious. I don't think it would play well with him. I think it would actually play against him.
I don't know that he would do it directly, but he would certainly do it in an underhanded way.
You don't have to call somebody a gay slur in order to go after somebody because they are homosexual.
Right.
Yes, the answer is yes. I don't think he would do it directly, but I think he would do it.
He would try to ignite the Mike Pence's wife type of religious element of his base.
Yeah, I also don't like the. I know there's people are going to get upset with me for saying this, but I'm going to call it like it is. I also don't like, frankly, the optics of Mayor Pete up against Donald Trump on a debate stage. There's a significant size difference, and I think that as ridiculous as that sounds, those optics matter.
You're right, and I'm not necessarily saying that I believe Mayor Pete would defeat Donald Trump, and I'm not even saying give him the best chance.
In my America, he would, but
yeah, but I mean, I agree with you. I respect Mayor Pete a lot.
It would be very difficult for Donald Trump to attack him and become this pious individual, considering how checkered his past has been.
I want to get Pat. We're up against a hard break here, but I want to give you a chance to interject here quickly before we. Have
Pat,
to
what do you think of Mayor Pete?
Yeah,
I honestly think if Mayor Pete gets on the stage and he holds himself up the way he did in the last debate, if Trump were to attack him based on his sexual preference, that would kill him. I think Trump would get defeated. I think Trump will have to go against Mayor Pete in a situation about business of the United States of America and talk about politics. I think if he went up against Kamala Harris, he would destroy her. I don't think Kamala Harris has a leg to stand on. She has too much baggage. Biden would be an interesting debate opponent because Biden, if he's on, could be very, very strong on stage. I think Mayor Pete gives the Democrats a very, very strong force. Whether he's gay or not is irrelevant. I think he could be a very, very
his lack of support among the African American community would be a significant issue, unfortunately, in the general election. Because for some reason he's gotten no traction among the African American community. He's like polling at 0 or 1%, which frankly I'm very surprised at.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know why that is, but he has not been able to gather any support in the African American community.
Pat, thank you so much for taking some time to join us, man. Really do appreciate it. Good friend of the show.
And I apologize I couldn't get in here in person. Michael,
no, that's all right.
Michael, enrollment's killing me.
As Arnold Schwarzenegger would say, Michael will be back. He'll be back. So, Pat, I appreciate you taking some time. Thank you so much. Michael, I always appreciate it when you come in studio, well, always when you come on our show. I know you're a very busy guy. I appreciate you coming in just to do the show with us. I know you got a lot of things going on these days, but my understanding is you will be back in a few weeks.
I'm going to be back. We're going to put a mic on campaign and get to it.
I can't wait for that. We'll get to that.
That could go sideways.
We'll get to that in a few weeks. Michael, thank you so much for being here, man. Always appreciate your time.
Mike.
Great friend of the show.
Good to see you
All right,
guys.
we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to run down what happened at the Thomas and Mack Center, UNLV basketball. We'll get to that, and Lions legend Herman Moore will be coming up in the next hour as well. Take a quick break. Be back right after this.